In the parched interior of Australia, where the sun cracks the clay and wind drags heat across the gibber plains, an invisible engineer of lethality threads its way through the stones. The Inland Taipan, a serpent so perfectly adapted to its environment that it operates like a biological algorithm, emerges not as a reckless killer, but as a master of efficiency. This snake does not waste. It does not gamble. It has refined the art of taking life down to a biochemical equation so precise that it could be mistaken for restraint. Here, in a land where heat itself becomes an adversary, survival is not about how much power you wield. It's about how little you need to spend to win. When the morning light hits the desert scrub, the air hums with a low shimmer. Small mammals, native rats and dasyurids, move in and out of the shadows, aware that the first hours of the day are the only safe window before ground temperatures rise past endurance. Beneath a shallow lip of sandstone, the taipan waits in coiled silence. Its body absorbs the warmth like a solar battery, storing just enough energy to trigger the hunt. Every breath is a calculation, each movement a decision between energy gained and lost. Venom, in this context, is not a weapon of dominance, but a form of currency, metabolically expensive, difficult to replenish, and dangerously finite in a place where every drop of fluid counts. The taipan's venom is among the most potent of any land snake, a neurotoxic compound engineered through evolution to short-circuit a mammal's respiratory system before panic or escape can waste the serpent's effort. But potency here is not an accident of aggression, it is the outcome of optimization. Field studies and controlled assays reveal that inland taipans deliver a remarkably consistent, low-volume strike against prey, roughly matching the size of their typical diet. A minimum lethal package. Unlike vipers or cobras, which may inject variable doses depending on agitation or prey resistance, the taipan's venom metering appears fine-tuned to its thermal and metabolic environment. The venom must do its job quickly, before the prey's struggling body dissipates into the heat, and before the snake itself overheats in pursuit. This relationship between heat and venom economy forms one of the most intriguing and least understood dynamics in desert ecology. Biochemically, producing venom costs energy. Proteins must be synthesized, stored, and stabilized in glands that are sensitive to dehydration. For a reptile living under intense thermal stress, conserving every molecular resource becomes vital. The inland taipan's strike and release method, delivering 1 or 2 lightning-fast jabs before retreating, allows the toxin to work while the snake conserves motion and energy. The prey, moments later, collapses as the neurotoxins dismantle the communication between brain and diaphragm. The snake's thermal sensors, clustered in pits along its snout, track this collapse through subtle changes in body temperature. Only then does it reapproach, swallowing efficiently, minimizing exposure to heat and predators. Cinematically, it would look instantaneous, a flash, a twitch, a stillness. But in the taipan's world, it is a perfectly timed exchange between biology and physics. The strike itself lasts less than 0.05 seconds, the kind of precision only achieved through thousands of generations of evolutionary iteration. The muscles driving that motion are coiled springs of power, evolved from ancestors that learned to strike from within burrows, where limited space demanded explosive efficiency. The fang deployment mechanism is equally surgical, folding forward like switchblades only when needed, their internal grooves delivering a measured volume of venom that could fell dozens of mice, but which in practice is parceled into just enough to silence one. What makes this more astonishing is how behavioral context alters the dose. Experimental evidence suggests snakes, including the Inland Taipan, can regulate venom output depending on prey type, size, and resistance. In captivity, when presented with non-living targets, the taipan often dry strikes or releases minimal venom, preserving its stock for meaningful kills. In the wild, this ability likely forms part of an adaptive feedback loop, a chemical discipline shaped by the feedback of heat, hydration, and hunting success. The higher the environmental stress, the more disciplined the snake becomes. Where an unrestrained bite might guarantee a kill but waste resources, a measured dose ensures continuity, a kind of ecological budgeting system written in proteins. From a physiological standpoint, the Inland Taipan embodies what desert survival demands: controlled efficiency. Its neurotoxins, primarily taipoxin, work by blocking acetylcholine transmission at neuromuscular junctions, essentially cutting the wire between the brain's command and the muscle's response. Death for a small mammal arrives not from bleeding or pain, but from silence, a suffocating paralysis that halts breathing. In ecological terms, this method is elegant. It preserves tissue integrity, avoiding the heat-accelerated spoilage that might make scavenging dangerous. It also minimizes struggle, reducing detection by aerial predators such as kites or goannas, watching for motion from above. The taipan's selective precision can be visualized as a heat map of intent. During cooler dawn hours, strikes are rarer, the snake's metabolism slower, its venom synthesis still idling. As temperature rises, so does its activity curve. Yet in peak heat, when ground temperatures surpass 50 degrees, it retreats underground again, a system reset. Studies on related elapids show that venom yield and composition may even shift with season, reflecting diet and thermal regimes. This dynamic chemistry suggests that the Inland Taipan's venom is not static but modular, a biochemical toolkit rebalanced through the rhythms of drought, flood, and rodent cycles. To film this without risk, researchers often use heat proxy targets, warmed analogues representing prey bodies, to measure strike timing, accuracy, and latency to immobilization. High-speed footage reveals that each strike is not a blind flurry, but an engineered trajectory. The head rises and retracts in a loop, the body uncoiling and recoiling almost simultaneously. The fangs penetrate shallowly, just enough for efficient delivery, before the snake releases instantly, sensing completion through vibration and heat transfer. Within seconds, the target's simulated core begins to cool, representing death by paralysis. It is a choreography of death so refined it could almost be mistaken for instinctive art. But beneath this efficiency lies a paradox. The Inland Taipan, for all its venomous supremacy, is reclusive to the point of near invisibility. Encounters with humans are vanishingly rare, and bites, though medically catastrophic, are virtually non-existent outside handling accidents. This is not a predator seeking dominance, but one managing scarcity. Its domain, the floodplains and claypan channels of Western Queensland, transforms from fertile to barren within days of rain or drought. Prey populations oscillate wildly, forcing the snake to balance between abundance and starvation. In boom years, it feeds and stores energy. In bust years, it estivates underground, shutting down metabolism almost completely. The venom, stable in storage, becomes a reserve currency for future hunts, an evolutionary investment in future certainty. At a deeper level, this story reveals a truth about desert survival that transcends species. Life in the outback is not about aggression, but economy. The Inland Taipan is not the monster of myth, but the mathematician of mortality. Every fang movement, every drop of venom, every minute spent above ground represents a cost-benefit equation refined by millions of years of natural selection. It embodies the principle that power in the desert is not measured by strength, but by restraint, by the precision of knowing exactly how much is enough. In the end, the question that lingers is less about danger and more about design. How little venom is expensive enough to guarantee dinner? For the Inland Taipan, the answer lies not in fear or fury, but in calibration. The desert's ultimate lesson written in chemistry and silence. In a land of extremes where the cost of one mistake is death, the Inland Taipan survives not because it can kill, but because it knows precisely when to stop. Beneath the tide pools of Australia's southern coasts, where the sea breathes in slow pulses and the sand shifts like liquid glass, a tiny shape stirs from under a shell fragment. Barely the size of a golf ball, the blue-ringed octopus glides forward, arms flowing in perfect synchrony. For most of its life, it is nearly invisible, skin tone blending seamlessly with sand, coral rubble, or encrusted rock. Only when the balance tilts toward danger does its signature miracle ignite. Electric blue rings flare open across its body, each one bordered by dark pigment and powered by rapid muscular contractions that expose iridophores buried beneath the skin. It is a silent explosion of color, as sudden and deliberate as lightning in shallow water. To the untrained eye, the blue rings appear decorative, even beautiful. But to the reef's inhabitants, they are a neon invoice, a demand for reconsideration. The octopus carries one of the most potent neurotoxins known, tetrodotoxin, a molecule so efficient that a single animal contains enough to kill dozens of humans. Yet paradoxically, the octopus does not brandish this power freely. The toxin cannot be replenished quickly, nor synthesized internally at will. It is produced by symbiotic bacteria within the animal's salivary glands, a costly alliance that requires maintenance, feeding, and constant physiological balance. Every bite that expends this resource represents a metabolic loss that cannot be immediately recovered. Thus, the blue-ringed octopus operates on a principle of economic deterrence. Advertise early, act late. In a world where death can arrive in milliseconds, this creature's strategy seems almost generous. The first defense is invisibility. During calm daylight hours, it hides beneath small stones or inside discarded mollusk shells, its chromatophores perfectly matching sand grains or sponge tissue. Motionless, it waits, not as a hunter in ambush, but as a mind observing. Cephalopods, with their distributed nervous systems, process the world through both central and peripheral intelligence. Each arm can act semi-independently, sampling water chemistry and texture, reading vibrations in the substrate. The body is a network of decision nodes, a living sensor array. When a fish, crab, or human hand strays too close, the octopus assesses the approach with astonishing precision. Only when contact nears inevitability does the calm surface erupt into color. The ring flash is not random panic. It is calibrated escalation, a layered communication system evolved to warn, not waste. High-speed footage reveals that the flashes intensify in both brightness and frequency as the threat persists. The first pulses are slow and faint, a polite announcement. If the predator continues, the pattern accelerates, rings strobing so fast that their motion becomes hypnotic. This optical pulse serves two purposes. First, it draws the attacker's attention away from the animal's true body position, And second, it delivers a clear message to any experienced observer: this encounter will end badly. Laboratory trials using dummy predator models have shown that retreat rates climb sharply once the second phase of flashing begins. Even artificial fish shapes equipped with heat signatures and movement cues tend to withdraw within seconds of the escalation. In the wild, such deterrence saves both predator and prey from costly injury, preserving balance in a system that runs on razor-thin margins. Toxin, the weapon behind the warning, is a sodium channel blocker. It prevents nerve cells from firing, freezing muscles in a state of paralysis while the brain remains aware. For the octopus's typical prey, small crustaceans and fish, this means an almost instant immobilization. But deploying that power in defense comes with risk. The octopus must bite to deliver the toxin effectively, and a bite exposes its fragile body to retaliation. The skin of the blue-ringed octopus is paper-thin, easily torn. A misplaced claw or fin strike can end its life before the toxin even takes effect. Hence the warning display is evolution's compromise, a bluff backed by truth. The colors say, "You will lose if you continue," and almost always the opponent believes it. In the microcosm of the tidal flat, this pattern repeats daily. A wandering goby hovers too close, flash, pause, retreat. A curious crab raises its claws, flash, strobe, stillness. Only when hunger forces proximity or a predator ignores all signs does the octopus resort to contact. In such moments, its behavior transforms. The arms coil like springs and the entire body contracts into a compact missile. The bite is surgical, aimed at the base of a limb or the soft joint of a carapace. Within moments, the prey collapses. No thrashing, no struggle, just a quiet settling onto the sand. The octopus returns to calm, color fading back to the palette of stone. But to understand the true genius of this system, one must consider the economics beneath it. Producing visible pigment and iridophore flashes consumes energy, yet it costs far less than regenerating venom. This makes the ring display a kind of invoice sent ahead of the actual payment. The octopus's body says, "Here is the bill you will owe if you proceed." In evolutionary accounting, it's a bargain, a threat display that prevents the need for an expensive transaction. Each successful deterrence event keeps the venom reserve intact, allowing more frequent hunts and fewer risky confrontations. The reef's predators, through generations of encounters, have learned to read this code. Even moray eels and scorpionfish, usually fearless hunters, hesitate before the glow. At a biochemical level, this restraint becomes even more fascinating. The symbiotic bacteria that produce tetrodotoxin are not unique to the blue-ringed octopus. They appear in pufferfish, flatworms, and certain marine snails. But in the octopus, these microbes inhabit a precisely regulated environment, the posterior salivary glands, where immune suppression and nutrient exchange keep them alive. The animal must constantly manage this microbial population through immune modulation, ensuring toxin production without triggering inflammation. Thus, its venom glands are not static organs but living ecosystems, miniature laboratories balanced on the edge of tolerance. Losing too many bacteria means losing potency. Allowing too many means risking infection. The blue-ringed octopus is therefore not only a chemical engineer, but also an ecological curator. From a behavioral ecology perspective, the species represents one of the purest examples of aposematism, warning coloration that genuinely protects both sides of the interaction. Unlike mimic species, whose colors deceive, the blue-ringed octopus tells the truth. Its colors have integrity, and integrity saves time. Time in a tidal world is everything. Between waves, the octopus must hunt, feed, clean, and find shelter before the tide shifts again. Each second spent fighting is a second lost to oxygen depletion or exposure. By reducing conflict through visual diplomacy, it gains a temporal advantage. Watching one move under magnification reveals subtler communication too. The rings are not isolated. They ripple across the body like neural waves, coordinated through chromatophore control centers that can act faster than the animal's conscious brain. The skin becomes an animated warning map, each pulse a reflection of the octopus's internal state. It is, in effect, an emotional display rendered in light, calm when still, seething when cornered. Recent research using polarized light cameras has shown that these displays also contain hidden signals visible only to certain marine species sensitive to polarization, a secret channel of negotiation invisible to the human eye. In the octopus's society, even light has subtext. Yet for all its chemical supremacy, the blue-ringed octopus remains vulnerable. Its lifespan rarely exceeds 2 years. Mating is brief and perilous. Males die soon after transferring spermatophores, females after brooding eggs in solitude. During that final vigil, the mother guards her clutch under rock, ceasing to feed, colors muted, body thinning to translucence. Her venom remains potent, but she will not use it. When the young finally hatch, each carries the same potential, an inherited pact between host and microbe, light and toxin, restraint and threat. Within weeks, they disperse into the shallows, tiny living warnings that will spend their short lives perfecting the art of avoidance. What we see in the blue-ringed octopus, then, is not merely a dangerous creature, but a moral economy of survival. Its defense is not built on escalation, but on diplomacy. The rings are not a display of anger. They are a plea for peace, underwritten by the absolute promise of consequence. The question it poses to the reef is ancient and universal. Can the threat of power prevent the need to use it? The answer, in these shallow Australian waters, appears to be yes. Each flash is a negotiation, each shimmer a contract written in light and chemistry. Few predators are foolish enough to test the clause that follows. And so the blue-ringed octopus continues its quiet reign, a creature whose colors speak louder than venom ever could, whose most potent weapon is the wisdom to keep it sheathed. Because in nature's ledger, survival isn't always about what you can spend. Sometimes the surest way to stay alive is to make your warning worth more than the attack. The forest floor of eastern Australia breathes differently when rain begins to fall. Each droplet that lands on leaf litter carries more than sound. It brings conductivity, scent, and opportunity. Beneath that rhythmic percussion, under layers of damp humus and root webbing, a shape waits just inside a silken tunnel. The funnel web spider, Atrax robustus among its kin, listens to the weather the way others listen for prey. For it, humidity is not a mere condition, it's a trigger, an environmental signal that redraws the entire economy of risk and reward. When the air thickens with moisture, the spider's world expands. Its venom, potent and costly, suddenly becomes worth spending. For most of the year, the funnel web is a patient minimalist. By day, it remains deep in its burrow, a silk-lined shaft leading to a flared entrance, radiating tripwires that tremble with exquisite sensitivity. The structure is both home and instrument. Every vibration, from a passing beetle to a drip of rain, translates through those threads into the spider's sensory universe. But in dry air, that network dulls. Static electricity builds, silk stiffens, and vibrations fade faster through parched soil. The spider conserves energy, feeding rarely, moving little. Its venom glands rest, full but idle. To strike in drought is to overspend. Prey is scarce, and each toxin pulse may take weeks to replenish. Then the weather shifts. Low pressure moves in, clouds bruise the canopy, and humidity climbs. The silk softens, returning its elasticity. Tiny droplets cling to thread junctions, transforming the web into a living amplifier. Raindrops drum against leaves, masking sound and giving cover. Within this sensory chaos, prey traffic spikes. Millipedes, crickets, and roaches seeking shelter wander closer to the tunnel's lip. The spider stirs. It extends the tips of its front legs just past the entrance, touching the moist air like a merchant testing the day's market. In that brief contact, it knows everything: the temperature gradient, the charge of the air, the scent of soil organisms revived by rain. To the funnel web, this is profit weather. Surface activity surges. Individuals that may have remained buried for weeks emerge to patrol within centimeters of their burrows, running short circuits between stone edges and leaf litter. For researchers observing with microclimate sensors, the pattern is unmistakable. Relative humidity above 80% correlates with a sharp rise in both surface foraging and strike frequency. It's not simply that prey is more abundant. The moisture also improves the silk's electrical responsiveness, allowing faster detection of contact. Where a beetle crossing in dry air might have escaped unregistered, in damp air, the same step sends a clear, resonant tremor down the funnel. The spider reacts almost instantly, springing forward with fangs unfolded like black needles. The venom that follows this ambush is among the most complex of any terrestrial predator. A cocktail of peptides and neurotoxins, including delta-atracotoxin, it acts by opening sodium channels in nerve membranes, forcing them to fire continuously until paralysis sets in. For mammals, this causes uncontrolled neurotransmitter release and potential cardiac arrest. For insects, it means total shutdown within seconds. But the venom's synthesis is metabolically expensive. Its production draws on proteins, ions, and enzymes that require stable hydration to assemble. During prolonged drought, that biochemistry slows. Thus, the spider's venom production capacity itself is bound to the weather's moisture cycles. Rain does not merely bring prey, it recharges the system that makes predation possible. Field measurements in controlled conditions reveal another pattern: the time to subdue metric, the interval between strike and immobilization, shortens dramatically with increased humidity. Part of this effect likely stems from physiological optimization. The spider's own muscles and neural reflexes function better in hydrated tissues. But there's more. The prey's cuticle, slightly softened by ambient moisture, allows faster venom diffusion. Even the air's conductivity plays a subtle role. Electrostatic gradients around the web and prey body shift with humidity, fine-tuning signal detection and response timing. In short, a wet night multiplies efficiency at every level, turning the same venom investment into greater returns. To film this interaction at scale requires patience and precision. Night vision cameras positioned over burrow entrances record brief, explosive moments: the flash of movement, a violent lunge, then stillness. Thermal sensors show how the spider's temperature remains nearly constant even as ambient air cools with rain. Its exoskeleton acts as a perfect insulator. When prey struggles, vibrations ripple down the silk funnel and echo through the damp soil like sonar. Within seconds, the spider withdraws, dragging the victim inside to consume it in silence. Every successful strike in this microclimate translates to stored energy, calories that will sustain the spider through the next dry phase when the ledger returns to red. Yet this predator's relationship with moisture is double-edged. During heavy rains, burrows can flood, forcing adults to surface in search of higher ground. These are the moments when humans most often encounter them, glossy black males wandering suburban lawns or shoe sheds after storms. What appears as aggression is, in truth, displacement. Their emergence coincides with the season of maximum venom potency, a dangerous alignment that fuels their infamous reputation. Still, in ecological terms, their behavior remains rational. The spider is responding to hydrological cues that once dictated the difference between survival and suffocation. The urban landscape, with its gutters and driveways, has merely replaced the sandstone creeks of their original range. Beneath the mythology of the deadliest spider lies a story about environmental accounting. The funnel web does not inject venom out of malice. Each strike is an expenditure measured against potential return. When moisture and prey density rise, the cost-benefit ratio tilts sharply in its favor. In those hours after rainfall, when air trembles with scent and the earth breathes vapor, the spider's world is liquid currency. Every droplet is a coin, every tremor a transaction. Even its mating system aligns with this rhythm, males leaving their burrows during humid nights to locate females by following pheromone trails that persist longer in moist air. Rain, in effect, connects the entire species economy. Food, reproduction, and risk all fluctuate with the same atmospheric balance sheet. Under magnification, the burrow itself reveals a stunning architecture tuned to this cycle. The silk layers near the surface are coarser, designed to absorb and shed moisture, while the deeper linings remain dense and waterproof. Tiny air pockets ensure oxygen exchange even during partial flooding. The funnel shape is not arbitrary. It channels both vibration and condensation toward the center, maintaining an optimal humidity gradient within the tunnel. It is a living sensor array, its geometry engineered by generations of selection to translate weather into opportunity. The spider, positioned just beyond the entrance, reads that signal the way a financial trader reads the market, waiting for the exact humidity point when risk becomes profit. When we chart this behavior over weeks, a clear ecological principle emerges. Environmental liquidity governs venom economics. The spider's moisture credit line opens when conditions align. Temperature between 15 and 25 degrees, humidity high, barometric pressure low. During that window, venom use spikes, prey abundance climbs, and web efficiency peaks. When the air dries again, the system contracts, activity drops, silk strands stiffen, and the spider resumes austerity. This cyclic rhythm ties the predator's physiology to the rainfall patterns of its biome, synchronizing its metabolism with Australia's unpredictable climate. In the broader network of the forest floor, such timing ripples outward. By killing more prey during wet periods, funnel webs indirectly redistribute nutrients, carcasses and frass enriching the soil, feeding detritivores, influencing microbial turnover. In this way, even their venom, a molecule forged for death, becomes an agent of ecological productivity. The pulse of rain doesn't just fuel growth above ground, it powers the chemistry of predation below it. As dawn returns and the air begins to dry, the forest quiets again. The spider retreats deeper, sealing its burrow with a silk plug that glistens faintly with dew. Inside, its metabolism slows, conserving energy for the next cycle of storms. Outside, only the faint outline of the funnel remains, fragile as breath. Within that narrow tube lies a record of every rain, every strike, every calculation. The funnel web spider is not merely a symbol of danger. It is an accountant of the Australian climate, balancing moisture against mortality with a precision that rivals any human system. So when the clouds gather and the soil darkens, the equation activates once more. Rainfall means prey. Humidity means profit. Venom flows not as impulse but as investment, a calculated transaction in the currency of life. And it leaves us with a question as sharp as its fangs. Does rain unlock a venom budget that no dry season could ever afford? In the eucalyptus woodlands of southern Australia, heat pools above the red earth like invisible glass. The landscape hums faintly, a fusion of cicadas, leaf tremors, and the quiet, deliberate movements of one of the continent's most formidable social predators, the bull ant. To the casual observer, it might seem just another insect on patrol, its glossy, rust-colored body catching the sun as it strides across bark and grass. But behind those mandibles and faceted eyes lies a system of warfare and communication so refined that each sting is more than pain. It is a signal. A trigger in a chemical marketplace where every molecule has value and every defensive act multiplies its worth through the network that answers it. The bull ant, genus Myrmecia, does not hide underground like most ants. It is a hunter that sees. Each worker's compound eyes contain thousands of lenses, a rarity among ants which typically rely on scent and touch. Through this visual precision, a bull ant can track motion several body lengths away, identifying prey or threat in open terrain. This independence comes with a paradox. Though fiercely individual in movement, these ants operate within a communication web as tight as any neural circuit. At the center of this system lies a currency invisible to the eye, the pheromone. A single sting doesn't just inject venom, it broadcasts information. When a disturbance, a lizard, bird, or careless footstep disrupts the colony's perimeter, the first responder acts without hesitation. Mandibles spread, stinger extended. It lunges and drives its weapon into the intruder's skin. The pain is instant, sharp, and lingering. A complex venom cocktail containing peptides that attack ion channels, inducing burning sensations that can last for hours. But the sting's physical damage is only the down payment. The real cost, and the real profit, lies in the chemical that follows. As the ant withdraws, it releases an alarm pheromone, an airborne compound carried by the dry Australian breeze. Within seconds, other workers detect the signal through their antennae, organs so sensitive they can register a few parts per trillion. The result is exponential. One sting summons 10 defenders, each armed and signaling in turn. The colony's chemical economy inflates within moments, transforming localized threat into coordinated retaliation. This chain reaction functions as a kind of biological futures market. Each ant's venom expenditure is small, but its signaling compounds multiply that effort through recruitment. In laboratory trials using synthetic alarm pheromones, researchers recorded recruitment curves that rise almost mathematically. A few initial responders spike the population density near the disturbance until it reaches a saturation point, after which diminishing returns stabilize the swarm. The pattern is remarkably similar to financial feedback loops. The more volatile the market, or the threat, the faster the acceleration until equilibrium returns. In this way, the bull ant colony acts as a self-regulating defense economy, its value measured not in venom droplets, but in response velocity. This system depends on the precision of the ant's chemical language. Unlike social species that use a variety of distinct pheromones for alarm, recruitment, and attack, bull ants rely on a narrow spectrum of compounds that vary subtly in concentration and context. A light pulse of alarm pheromone released by an exploratory worker might summon a few scouts for inspection. A sustained emission, typically triggered by the muscular contractions that follow a sting, signals genuine combat. These nuances are critical. Overreacting drains colony resources, underreacting risks collapse. The ants must therefore gauge not just presence of danger, but its magnitude, adjusting output accordingly. The sting, in this sense, becomes both a physical and an informational event, a venom delivery system that doubles as a broadcast tower. From a cinematic vantage, the process is electrifying. A single worker emerges from the base of a grass tussock, antennae raised, body tense. A vibration travels through the ground, a small reptile passing by. The ant freezes, then pivots sharply, tracking movement through air currents. When the animal comes too close, the ant rushes forward in a burst of speed, stabbing once before retreating to a nearby root. Within seconds, others surface, 5, 10, 20, streaming from hidden entrances like sparks from a fuse. Each moves with uncanny coordination, pausing only to test the air. Invisible scent molecules drift outward from the sting site, forming a chemical corridor that leads reinforcements straight to the point of contact. What was once a lone act of defense has become an organized front. The efficiency of this recruitment is amplified by the bull ant's dual sensory channels. While pheromones drive mass coordination, visual recognition allows precise targeting. Once the swarm converges, individuals continue to act autonomously, each locking onto motion within its field of view. This hybrid of collective signaling and personal agency makes them extraordinarily adaptable. They are not a mindless horde, but a distributed intelligence, a battlefield network capable of scaling response with context. Against a small intruder, the attack dissipates quickly once retreat is detected. Against a persistent one, the assault compounds until the invader flees or falls. The venom is potent enough to deter most vertebrates, but even when it fails to penetrate thick skin, the coordinated pressure of dozens of stings accomplishes the same result. To test this interaction, researchers have conducted playback experiments using alarm pheromone extracts applied near colony entrances. At low concentrations, only a few ants emerge, scanning with alert posture. As the dose increases, emergence accelerates, reaching a frenzy of activity within minutes. But when the source is removed, calm returns almost immediately. The colony's regulation is precise. The alarm dissipates through enzymatic breakdown, ensuring that panic never lingers beyond necessity. In this dynamic, we see an elegant conservation of energy. Venom, pheromone, and manpower, all expended only as long as the equation remains favorable. Beneath this behavioral theater lies a deeper ecological logic. The bull ant occupies a middle layer of the food web, preying on small arthropods while serving as prey for lizards and birds. Its venom and alarm system ensure that predation remains costly for would-be attackers. Over evolutionary time, this feedback pressure sculpts local ecosystems. Predators learn avoidance, prey alter foraging times, and the colony's territory stabilizes. Even plant communities benefit indirectly. Bull ants disperse seeds from Myrmecoccurus species, such as acacia and grevillea, carrying them underground during calm periods when the pheromone market is quiet. Thus, the very chemicals that fuel warfare also underwrite ecological maintenance, connecting aggression with regeneration. The venom itself adds another layer of intrigue. While it contains formic acid and peptides similar to those found in wasps, bull ant venom includes unique neuroactive compounds capable of disrupting ion flow in vertebrate neurons, a biochemical rarity among insects. This potency ensures that even a single sting is memorable, forging long-term deterrence in predators through associative learning. Evolutionarily, this means fewer battles over time. The cost of one sting today secures safety for many tomorrows. The sting's true success, then, lies not in the damage it causes, but in the behavior it prevents. Yet what makes this species truly remarkable is how seamlessly its social chemistry scales across context. Within the nest, alarm pheromones regulate internal tasks, prompting workers to cluster or disperse depending on conditions. Outside, the same compounds orchestrate colony-wide defense. This fluidity transforms the bull ant colony into a living algorithm, adjusting defense output to match threat input, a natural analog to cybernetic feedback systems. It's a reminder that complexity in nature doesn't require central control. It only requires precise communication between parts. From a broader evolutionary lens, the bull ant's strategy represents a transitional model between solitary and superorganismic life. Most ants are heavily dependent on collective anonymity. A single worker's identity dissolves into the swarm. The bull ant, however, straddles both worlds. Visually guided individuals whose strength lies not in numbers alone, but in the speed at which one's decision propagates through the group. A sting here is both weapon and message, neuron and synapse, node and broadcast. As evening falls over the woodland, the air cools, carrying away the last traces of alarm scent. The colony withdraws into its subterranean chambers, sealing the entrances with soil grains. Silence returns, broken only by the faint clicks of mandibles beneath the ground. Above, the trees sway in the dusk, unaware that the chemical war below them has ended for now, balanced, resolved, accounted for. The bull ant's world runs not on rage, but on arithmetic. Every sting is a transaction, every pheromone release a broadcast bid in a market that values coordination above all. Its defense system is less an act of violence than an exercise in economics, a biological demonstration that in complex societies, the network itself is the weapon. And so the question lingers, both scientific and philosophical. When one sting summons an army, is venom really the danger, or is the true power the invisible network that answers the call? The midday heat along the river margins of eastern Australia hums with the sound of cicadas. The air trembles above the sandbanks, and in that shimmer, a shadow moves, slow, deliberate, too large to ignore. The lace monitor, or goanna, emerges from the shade of a fallen eucalyptus, its tongue flicking rhythmically, drawing invisible threads of scent from the air. With each extension of that forked organ, molecules of carrion, reptile or mammal drift into the Jacobson's organ at the roof of its mouth. The message it reads is ancient: food, danger, opportunity. But what the rest of the forest reads, when this reptile appears, is simpler. Do not test this beast. At up to 2 meters in length and cloaked in patterned armor of cream and charcoal, the lace monitor carries an aura of authority few animals question. Even the crow's jeers fade when it approaches. Kangaroo carcasses left by dingoes are often found attended by these lizards, standing upright on their muscular hind limbs, forearms pressed against the carcass as they tear through hide with claws, more akin to a raptor's than a reptile's. Yet the real force of this animal's dominance is not in its claws or teeth. It lies in reputation, a blend of myth, chemistry, and theater that turns potential conflict into compliance long before blood is spilled. For centuries, the goanna's bite has been the subject of folklore. Indigenous Australians, who know these animals with deep familiarity, long noted that their bites bled more than those of other reptiles. Early colonists spread tales of poison lizards, stories that grew with each retelling. Modern science, after decades of dismissal, has circled back. The lace monitor does, in fact, possess a mild venom apparatus. Glands in its lower jaw secrete compounds that cause anticoagulation and hypotension, prolonging bleeding and perhaps dulling pain through bioactive peptides. The venom's potency, however, is subtle, far from deadly, but physiologically effective enough to create a sensation of prolonged injury. Evolutionarily, this is not overkill. It's economics. In ecological terms, the lace monitor practices what could be called myth leverage. It has learned, through both natural selection and behavioral reinforcement, that visible intimidation and the rumor of danger can achieve nearly the same outcome as an actual bite at a fraction of the metabolic costs. In predator-prey economics, venom is an expensive currency. Producing and storing these compounds draws on proteins, lipids, and energy reserves that must be replenished through rare meals. For a cold-blooded hunter whose metabolism runs slow and whose feeding opportunities are irregular, waste is unacceptable. Better then to let others do the storytelling. The display begins long before any conflict. A lace monitor confronted by a rival or a predator raises its body high, inflates its throat, and opens its mouth to reveal a cavern of pink flesh and dark saliva. It hisses with startling depth, a sound halfway between a steam vent and a growl. This alone sends most challengers retreating. For those who persist, perhaps a fox, a dog, or a misguided human, the next act of the performance unfolds. The lizard lashes its tail, a whip of muscle capable of breaking skin, and advances in short, heavy strides. The motion amplifies its size, exaggerating the illusion of weight and reach. Its tongue flicks faster, a visual metronome of threat. All of this happens before a single tooth makes contact. Field studies observing predator approach tests, where researchers simulate threats using silhouettes or scent trails, show that retreat rates among potential aggressors rise dramatically once the goanna adopts an upright, tail-arched stance. Few animals push further than that threshold. To them, the combination of mass, confidence, and the faint chemical cues of danger is enough. The venom of the lace monitor, then, works not primarily through molecules, but through belief. The rumor becomes functionally real because everyone behaves as if it is. This psychological power has ecological implications. By discouraging confrontation, the monitor minimizes its own risk of injury. It can scavenge openly, often side by side with wedge-tailed eagles or dingoes, without contesting possession. Its dominance relies less on victory than on avoidance, a dynamic that keeps the landscape's carcass economy stable. Even within its species, combat is rare. Territorial disputes often resolve through bluffing postures and ritualized circling, with both lizards eventually walking away unscathed. The expense of venom or bloodshed is avoided entirely, replaced by a symbolic currency of menace. But beneath that performance lies a physiological truth. When the lace monitor does bite, it commits to precision. The curved teeth, finely serrated like miniature saw blades, slice through tissue efficiently, creating wounds that bleed freely. Experiments measuring clotting times confirm that its saliva slows coagulation, allowing even minor cuts to flow longer than normal. This prolongation may serve two evolutionary purposes. It weakens small prey faster, and it reinforces the reputation of danger. To a predator bitten once, canine, human or marsupial, the prolonged bleeding and inflammation are unforgettable. The next encounter, the memory alone will be deterrent enough. It's a system built on feedback. One bite writes a legend. That legend prevents the need for another. Over time, natural selection favors individuals whose venom and intimidation align most efficiently, strong enough to convince, mild enough to conserve. The species doesn't need to evolve the lethal toxicity of a taipan or the stealth of an ambush snake. Its genius lies in minimalism, spending the least biological capital to secure the greatest behavioral control. Around the edges of human settlements, this logic continues to play out. Goannas drawn to roadkill or refuse bins display a curious blend of caution and entitlement. They keep a calculated distance, moving off only when approached too closely. Farmers sometimes misinterpret this as arrogance. In truth, it's probability assessment. The lizard knows that most creatures, humans included, prefer avoidance to confrontation. And for those that don't, the occasional dog or opportunistic raptor, the sight of that open mouth and hissing posture is enough to end the contest before it begins. Recent research using infrared imaging has revealed another layer to the performance. The lace monitor's thermal signature changes during threat displays. As the lizard arches and exhales, blood flow to the throat and head increases, heating those regions several degrees above ambient. The effect is visually dramatic to other ectothermic species sensitive to infrared or heat gradients. What appears to us as a display of sound and posture may to another reptile look like a glowing warning flare, a visual exaggeration of danger encoded in temperature itself. Evolution, ever thrifty, finds new ways to advertise the same message without additional cost. In ecological context, the lace monitor's myth leverage plays a stabilizing role. By deterring attacks through intimidation, it avoids wasting venom, reduces conflict, and maintains its place as both scavenger and regulator. Its presence around carcasses accelerates decomposition and nutrient cycling, preventing bacterial overgrowth and supporting scavenger diversity. In this way, fear becomes a form of ecological service, keeping the system moving, the energy flowing, the cycle intact. When one observes a lace monitor up close, the impression is unmistakable, intelligence tempered by calculation. Its eyes track movement with eerie precision. Its tongue never ceases tasting the wind. This is an animal that thinks before it spends, chemically, physically, behaviorally. Its entire existence is built upon the principle that threat, once believed, is as powerful as attack, once delivered. The faint tinge of anticoagulant in its saliva may well be the evolutionary signature of that truth, a molecule that carries not only biological function, but cultural weight in the language of the landscape. And so the question becomes less about venom itself and more about communication. How much of survival in the wild depends on reality and how much on reputation? For the lace monitor, the two are inseparable. Its legend, spread through generations of wary predators, startled hikers, and bleeding dogs, does what chemistry alone could not. It multiplies deterrence across memory and species lines. When the lizard retreats back into the shade, its heavy claws scratching softly against bark. The forest exhales. The rumor of its danger remains long after it has gone, drifting through the food chain like an inherited truth. In that silence lies the genius of its strategy, the art of winning without spending, of turning fear into currency. Because in the balance sheet of evolution, the lace monitor has learned what few predators ever do. If the rumor does the job, why pay with venom at all? The estuaries of northern Australia are places where freshwater ambition meets the patience of the sea. Mudbanks rise and fall with the tides, mangrove roots breathe in rhythm with the moon, and in that slow respiration of salt and silt waits an animal that has perfected the mathematics of ambush. The saltwater crocodile, Crocodilus porosus, is not a venom user, not a sprinter, not even a particularly active hunter. It is a strategist. Every scale, every fiber of its muscle, every minute spent motionless beneath the brown surface speaks of an economy where power replaces poison and physics does the work of chemistry. At first glance, the crocodile's approach to predation seems primitive, a simple ambush, a lunge, a bite. Yet beneath that apparent simplicity lies one of the most efficient kill systems in the natural world, a model of what could be called non-venom price matching. Where snakes and spiders invest metabolic resources in crafting molecular weapons, the crocodile trades chemical cost for geometry and timing. It spends not in proteins, but in patience, using water's physics as both camouflage and weapon. Every successful strike is the product of environmental accounting, where turbidity, tide height, and current speed determine when a single movement will be enough to earn a meal. Seen through the haze of a mangrove inlet, the crocodile is nearly invisible. Its skin mirrors the dappled reflections of mud and leaf litter. Its body breaks the surface in scattered segments, snout, eyes, a strip of back, each separated by space so that nothing forms a recognizable silhouette. To fish, wallabies, or even waterbirds, the river appears empty. Only the faintest ripples betray the hidden mass below. Turbidity sensors placed at typical strike sites show why. In water carrying even moderate silt, the crocodile's approach becomes undetectable beyond a meter. The same particles that cloud visibility for prey form a perfect curtain for the predator. Every motion within this system is timed to the rhythm of tides. During high tide, when the estuary floods into forest margins, crocodiles cruise silently along submerged banks, their sensory pits, integumentary pressure receptors, mapping minute water movements created by potential prey. Each pit can detect vibrations smaller than a millimeter in amplitude, forming a tactile vision that functions even in complete darkness. At low tide, when the mudflats expose stranded crabs and wading birds, the same individuals lie buried in wet silt, bodies coated in a film that masks scent and reflects heat. For hours they do not blink, burn calories, or reveal breath. Patience becomes their camouflage, and the river's own stillness becomes their ally. When the strike finally comes, it is a sudden release of stored potential. Force plate simulations have recorded bite pressures exceeding 16,000 newtons, among the highest ever measured in a living animal. This is not a slice or puncture strategy. It is a lock and crush mechanism, turning prey into an object governed by physics rather than will. The jaws close so quickly that the impact creates a pressure wave in the water, stunning small fish and shaking the balance of larger victims. Then comes the death roll, a spiral torque that disorients and tears, powered not by speed but by leverage. Here again, efficiency rules. By converting rotational momentum into damage, the crocodile avoids the metabolic drain of prolonged struggle. Compare this to a venomous system, a taipan's bite or a funnel web's strike. Both rely on biochemical investment, proteins synthesized, glands maintained, molecules stabilized. The crocodile, by contrast, maintains no such metabolic expense. Its entire weaponry is structural, renewable, and nearly free of upkeep. A snake must strike often to maintain muscle conditioning and venom yield. A crocodile can feed once, then rest for weeks, its digestion aided by solar heat. The trade-off is clear. Chemistry buys precision, but physics buys longevity. In the field, researchers tracking predation success have found that the crocodile's kill efficiency rivals and often surpasses that of venomous predators. In turbid estuarine water where visibility drops below 30 centimeters, strike success rates approach 80%, an extraordinary figure for an ambush hunter. Clearer conditions, by contrast, halve that success, proving that environmental opacity is not just an advantage, but a requirement. Where toxins compensate for unpredictability in other predators, crocodiles rely on the landscape itself to guarantee control. The water becomes their venom, invisible, engulfing, and absolute. Every detail of the crocodile's anatomy reinforces this strategy. Its snout shape, broad but tapered, reduces wave signatures during approach. Its eyes and nostrils, placed high on the skull, allow it to remain almost completely submerged. The jaw's internal architecture locks when shut, enabling sustained pressure without continuous muscle contraction, a mechanical savings account. Even its stomach chemistry, so corrosive it can dissolve bone, serves the same philosophy of economy: extract maximum nutrition from minimal effort. This system of low-cost lethality extends beyond hunting into thermoregulation and territoriality. Crocodiles use thermal gradients in water to manage metabolism, shifting between sunlit shallows and cooler depths with precision that keeps body temperature optimal for digestion and energy retention. Each motion is a calculated trade. A few joules of heat gained here, a reduction of metabolic burn there. A population-level study across northern rivers found that individuals in more turbid, tidally variable systems grew faster and reached larger sizes than those in clearer inland lagoons, suggesting that environmental efficiency directly translates into growth, the physical manifestation of profit in this natural economy. Watching one hunt in slow motion is watching physics made flesh. The initial stillness is deceptive. Beneath the water, micromuscular adjustments maintain balance against subtle currents. The tail acts as both rudder and spring, storing potential energy while stabilizing orientation. When a wallaby lowers its head to drink, the strike unfolds in a single motion, a vertical surge that breaches the surface in a plume of spray. The jaws close before the splash subsides. Momentum carries predator and prey backward into the river, the crocodile already rolling to minimize the prey's leverage. In less than 10 seconds, what was a dynamic mammal becomes a silent displacement of mud. The water closes over it and equilibrium returns. But beyond the spectacle lies a deeper ecological calculation. By relying on physical precision rather than chemical assault, crocodiles minimize collateral impact on their ecosystem. Venom leaks and decays, pressure leaves no residue. The crocodile's role is immediate but clean, a remover of the weak, a recycler of energy. Its kills feed fish, crustaceans, and scavenging birds. Its basking sites shape riverbank vegetation through compaction and nutrient deposition. Even its nesting mounds, built from rotting vegetation, become incubators for insects and microfauna. Each action, rooted in geometry and timing, contributes to the larger order of the estuary. In this light, the saltwater crocodile is not just a hunter, but an engineer of equilibrium. Its existence keeps tidal corridors clear of excess carrion and regulates populations that might otherwise unbalance the coastal chain. Its dominance is unchallenged because it wastes nothing. A crocodile's survival strategy has remained virtually unchanged for over 200 million years, not because it is simple, but because it is exact. It represents the final expression of biological cost control, where every joule of energy spent earns measurable return. And yet, what is most striking about this animal is not its strength, but its restraint. For every successful kill, dozens of potential strikes are withheld. The crocodile measures opportunity by probability, not impulse. It allows prey to approach unmolested for hours, even days, waiting until physics, angle, tide, depth aligns so perfectly that success becomes certain. That patience, not aggression, is its ultimate adaptation. At dusk, as the tide turns and the mangroves exhale mist, a large male surfaces near the estuary mouth. Only the nostrils break the water. The air smells of salt and tannin. The horizon glows copper in the fading light. Around him, mullet leap and birds settle on branches, unaware that a world of silent calculation moves just below them. The crocodile drifts with the current, eyes unblinking, body motionless, mind tuned to vibration and flow. It doesn't need venom. It has mastered the river's math, density, drag, leverage, gravity, and in doing so, it has become the river itself. So when we ask which predator holds the cheaper kill, the venomous hunter who pays in molecules, or the crocodile who invests in motion, the answer is written in the tide. The venom user spends energy to alter chemistry. The crocodile spends nothing but time. Its weapon is not what it makes, but what it knows. That water, weight, and patience are currencies more ancient and enduring than poison. In a world full of costly predators, the saltwater crocodile remains the ultimate minimalist, the perfect engineer of the river, the hunter who kills with physics instead of venom, and the accountant who proves that in nature, efficiency is its own form of power.